Welcome to Codex History of Video Games. I'm Mike Coletta.
And I'm Tyler Osby.
And today we're continuing our tier list of first-person shooter franchises.
We're going through the all-time greats of FPS games, and we're putting them in a tier list, S through D tier, because we're not trying to talk about games that are bad, okay? And also, just because something's not on the list doesn't mean it's bad. It probably just means we don't have a lot of experience with it, and therefore can't properly rank it.
Yeah, if you're like, hey, Mike, where's X versus Sever? It's not making the list. Okay, sorry,
That doesn't
everybody.
mean it's bad. I've just never played X versus Sever.
I did. Guess what? It's not very good.
Is that an F tier?
It might be an F tier. It was a Game Boy game. There's got to be more than that. Hold on. Why did I bring this up? Why did I bring up
X versus Sever? They had that's the subtitle of it. It's something colon X versus Sever, isn't it?
Yeah, Ballistics X versus Sever was a movie.
Okay.
But yeah, this isn't even a franchise. It was a Game Boy Advanced game that I had that was a first-person shooter, and it was very hard because it turns out using a D-pad to try to do exact aim, not very easy.
That's
tell you
tough.
that much.
You know, there were some fun like pseudo 3D games on the Game Boy Advance. I mean, you had the Doom and Doom 2 were both on there. Grand Theft Auto for the Game Boy Advance was like a 3D, like almost Grand Theft Auto 3 kind of thing. That's kind of crazy to me.
Oh, yeah, that is kind of crazy.
I feel like there was a Medal of Honor game too.
There was a Medal of Honor game. I'm very positive on that because I think I was like between this and that is kind of where I was at when I purchased X versus Sever and bought it and bought it. That's the same thing.
Purchased and bought.
Consider yourself purchased and bought video game. But it was pretty bad choice on my part. I mean, I kind of want to know. Like I'm looking right now to see if it's worth money because I'm curious. This game was one of those ones that was not good.
Yeah,
that I bet you. Yep, I was right. It's worth money. Like it's worth like pretty good amount for the Game Boy Advance version, like $13, $15.
You love to see it. Let's name off where we're at here because this is part 2. We've already gone through the D tier. That's Fear and Red Faction. Once again, doesn't mean these games are bad to be in the D tier. It just means that of the games that we're looking at here, they're on the low end. So Fear and Red Faction, D tier. C tier, controversial, Call of Duty, Far Cry. B tier, Unreal Tournament, Battlefield. We're loving the multiplayer games. A tier, Crysis and Counter-Strike. I think Crysis we put in A tier because of the general quality the series has held across 3 entries plus the expansion, which was really fun, Warhead, and then Counter-Strike because of its esports prowess and longevity, I guess. Then we have the S tier, BioShock and Doom. And that's where we're at. We still have a whole bunch more on this list, so if you think we missed something, that's why you're listening to this episode. We're going to get to it.
All right, well, I say I'm going to pick. Am I good to pick? I feel like
pick one.
Is that cool?
Yep.
I'm going to dive right into a big franchise. Let's just get Halo out of the way. Where do we think Halo goes?
Okay, Halo has a lot of entries in it. So if we're sort of basing this off of overall quality, which takes into account the entire series, obviously first game, absolute classic. Nobody doesn't like the first game. Second game too, better in every way, IMO, although maybe people would argue about that. Third game, great game. Maybe not quite on the level of as Halo 2, IMO, for the same reason BioShock 2 was like not as good as BioShock 1 was because they did more of the same thing, which is great. It's still a great game. It just didn't blow our minds the way the second one did.
Halo 4 story was good. I would say the story was good. Multiplayer wasn't as well received. We skipped Halo Reach also. Halo Reach, good. I think just good, right? But did people not like the Halo Reach multiplayer? Did people like it?
No, I think people like the multiplayer. I'm not a big multiplayer gamer, especially when it comes to the Halos. I did play a lot of 2 and 3 when they were the thing, but I didn't play Reach, and I didn't really care for the multiplayer in 4. Not because it was bad, but just because I don't really play FPS multiplayer online anymore, you know?
Here's the thing about Halo multiplayer, though. Even when it's bad, it's still good. When we say bad, it's playable and well done. It's just not as good as what we remember. I think there's a lot of nostalgia with Halo, too.
Yeah.
That throws people off.
That's a big part of it, though. I think nostalgia should be a factor, should count. You can't deny what Halo 2 did for online gaming, both in terms of bringing online gaming to console players. Yeah, I know it wasn't the first FPS you could ever play online on a console, but it was the first one to get popular and actually have people play. And I think it brought a lot to multiplayer in general, even when you start talking about PC and stuff, because after Halo 2 came out, you start to see, because it had matchmaking. That's the big thing that Halo 2 had, which is, I know, is part of Xbox Live's deal. That was like an Xbox Live innovation, but I think we really saw Halo 2 take full advantage of matchmaking, where you just click a button, you say what kind of game you want to play, and it just finds you people to play with. There's no server browser, there's nothing else going on, but just, I want to play the game, you click the button, and it's going to find some people for you. No, not everybody likes that as an innovation, but you can't deny the impact it had on the industry.
Yeah, because that really brought it for more people, brought it forward,
Yep.
you know?
Yep. Because there's a barrier to entry for FPS online at the time, because it was mostly PC, so that's a barrier to entry right off the bat. But also, when you want to play a game, you got to go into like the server browser, and you find servers that people are hosting, and they have games going, and you just sort of click one and hope that you get put into a game with people who are going to be fun. It's a very manual process, whereas playing Halo 2 was like, especially when you're playing in the ranked modes where it finds you people of equal skill, that's something that's really was not really heard of in the PC gaming landscape. Like, you would go to servers, sometimes servers would say, oh, we're newbie friendly, but that doesn't mean that it's only noobs playing, right? It just means that the people who are really good are not going to be mean to you if you're bad.
Yeah, 100%.
So,
what about Halo 5 and Halo Infinite? What do we think about those and how it ranks and helps? I know 5's story was kind of frowned upon, but I still thought it was okay.
Yeah, I think they're all generally okay in terms of story-wise. I liked 4 better than 5. I think Reach might be my favorite story, although 2 is pretty good too. 5, and I never played the multiplayer for 5.
The multiplayer was better than 4 and Reach, if you ask me.
In 5,
the
really?
multiplayer in 5 took it kind of back more towards old Halo.
They went a little Call of Duty with it in Reach and 4, huh?
Yeah. Infinite is doing its own kind of thing. The multiplayer's fine. The story is really cool. They innovated and it works, I think.
I loved the
that's
Infinite
positive
story
points.
mode. Yeah, I think the open world thing was really cool. I really enjoyed playing the campaign of Infinite. It also helps that it came out on Game Pass day one. I didn't have to spend extra money on this game, so like anything is good, right? But I had a good time. Like, I'm not going to play a game that's not fun. I'm not going to waste my time. So like, I had fun. I finished and played the whole game. I was bummed it didn't have co-op until co-op's still not out, right?
Yeah, it doesnhave co-op yet. It's like in beta, I think.
They kept saying, they're like, we'll bring it out in May, and it's been 6 months now, and it's like, it's been proven to have been harder for them than I think they thought.
Well, ranking wise, I'm leaning B.
B tier.
Is that too low? I'm like, it's between A and B for me. I don't think it's S.
Dang, I'm trying to, like, I've had a lot of fun with Halo. I've spent a lot of time playing it over the years. I wouldn't call myself a super fan. I just always enjoyed it when it came out. I try to play them, when they're new, whatever. But the impact that it's had on the industry is hard. I think it's hard for me to settle with B.
How about A?
I might put it on A tier with you.
Let's put it on A. I mean, I'm thinking also about like that first time I played Halo 1 Combat Evolved Story Mode and you meet the Flood and it's really scary. But then it's also like looking back on it now, it's like they have the library is just a copy pasted level over and over again.
That's
so this
true.
place where you're like, I don't know. So I think A tier is good.
Okay. All right. I'll go with A tier. So we think BioShock and Doom are better than Halo.
I would agree with that.
Okay. All right.
How about you pick now?
Next one, Duke Nukem. I don't have a lot of experience with this.
Oh, old Nuke Dukem. I have some experience with it, but truth be told, we're basing this off of the first 2 games, really, and then Forever is kind of a disaster.
Yeah, and you're talking Duke Nukem 3D because there were side scrollers. I guess we're not counting those because
we're not counting those. We're counting Duke Nukem 3D. And then there were some expansions for Duke Nukem 3D, I thought. The thing with Duke Nukem, though, is it's a lot of modding. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That gives it some points there. But it was very much a shock factor kind of deal for it to come out. I don't want to rank this too high is my thing. I'm leaning towards this going C or D tier.
Oh, I was going to say D tier because Duke Nukem Forever, I do want to play Duke Nukem Forever because it is apparently really bad. I have a feeling I'm going to play Duke Nukem Forever and be like, yeah, this isn't that bad. But It was just
you
so,
are Mr. Gotham Knights, so
that's
what
true.
I've been calling you lately.
We'll talk about Gotham Knights later. But yeah, I don't have a lot of experience with Duke Nukem, so I leave it to you to decide, because I've played maybe like the first couple levels of Duke Nukem 3D, and that's really
we're basing it off of like the cultural relevance is why we made Halo go up.
That's fair.
And Duke Nukem has that, which would make me want to make it C tier. But does its cultural relevance make up for the fact that Duke Nukem Forever is considered one of the worst games ever made?
Yeah, I think it's D tier. I don't
Let's
think it makes up for it.
Yeah, let's put it in D tier. And that means, hey, Duke Nukem, we want you to have a second life, to rise.
Yeah.
Like a inappropriate, politically incorrect phoenix coming from the ashes.
That's right.
Of your old game.
Yeah, I have a hard time saying that it is like part of the reason that it is still culturally relevant is because Duke Nukem Forever was so bad. That's what we talk about, is how Duke Nukem Forever was so bad. Right?
Agreed.
That's why it's culturally relevant still. And so to have those first two games like benefit from the last game being bad feels weird. So yeah.
Duke Nukem had quite the level editor though too, the Duke Nukem 3D game.
Really?
Yeah, and that was like really popular too. That's kind of why I would want to bring it up, but I think D tier is safe because that means if we had an F tier, it would not be in the F tier. It would be in the D tier still. Unlike Red Faction. Hey, look at you, Red Faction. I'm coming for you. Watch out. Okay. I think next up, I want to go with Borderlands.
Ooh.
Popular game. I haven't played the new Tiny Tina's Wonderland yet.
Me neither.
But I have played 1, 2, and 3. I played 3 with you, which was fun.
Yeah, we played the third one a little bit. I played through the second one with my partner. We dumped like 50 or 60 hours into that. We had a really good time doing everything in the second game.
Borderlands 2 is great. Borderlands 1 is great. Borderlands 3 could not keep my attention. I beat it because I felt like I paid $60 for it and I had to. That's kind of how I feel.
Yeah. So the first Borderlands was, I think, groundbreaking. It was the game that I wanted when I was a younger kid, when I was really getting into RPGs, but also liked FPSs. I was like, what if somebody made an FPS where you got experience points when you killed bad guys, and then you could level up and it'd be like an RPG? And that was like the mashup of genres that I wanted in my brain. And then Borderlands did it, and it was really fun. The first one was really good. It had its shortcomings. It was kind of a short game. It wasn't quite as deep as we would have hoped in terms of like skill trees and stuff like that. But I think for kind of being the first one there, like FPS RPG kind of thing, it really
broke people ground. Diablo with guns. That was my whole thing. I was obsessed with that part of it.
Yeah, Diablo with guns. And then Borderlands 2 came out and did what all good sequels do in a series like that, and it just makes everything better. The storyline is way better. So funny. The million billion guns were great. The levels were better. The whole thing was it was everything great about the first Borderlands, but better, and none of the bad stuff. Borderlands 2, fantastic. The pre-sequel was just more Borderlands 2. That was pretty fun too. We didn't finish it though because I think we were kind of burnt out on Borderlands.
I got kind of burnt out on that one too. It was kind of like, I didn't like the whole oxygen thing. I thought that was kind of weird.
Yeah.
Took some chances, didn't really hit as hard. Borderlands 3, I mean, the thing about Borderlands is you have to have a good friend group to play this game with. Mm-hmm. And I was late to the bus, essentially.
Same.
And it caused it to fall apart. It was a good game. I'm leaning towards putting Borderlands in the B tier.
That's what I was thinking too.
Because it's a good game, solid series. I've actually heard that Tiny Tina's Wonderland is like really fun, and I need to get it. But yeah, I'm thinking B tier.
Yeah, I'm good with you on that. No duds. The third one was a little bit of a disappointment. Pre-sequel, not as good as some other stuff, but 0 duds, so I think B tier is pretty good.
All right, where do you want to go next with our little list here, Tyler?
Okay. Next on the list, this is going to be an interesting one. We're just sort of focusing on FPS entries, obviously. James Bond. John Glimpse.
Ooh, so we're talking about GoldenEye, cultural relevance and impact of that. We're talking about 007 Nightfire.
Uh-huh.
Personal favorite of mine.
Talking about Agent Under Fire. Talking about The World Is Not Enough, I think, also had an FPS entry.
Mm-hmm.
After that, Quantum of Solace was just Call of Duty, but James Bond.
Yeah, I never played that. I wanted to though. I always wanted. I might try to find a copy of that used somewhere because that sounds fun to play. It's on Xbox 360, I think, right?
Yeah, 360 and PS3. I don't think it had a PC version.
It's a bummer. I think, for me, cultural relevance of GoldenEye,
Mm-hmm.
but it's kind of out of the public eye now. It's not, James Bond video games are just not a thing really anymore, especially first-person shooters.
Yeah, and honestly, the reason that GoldenEye was so good is not because it was a James Bond game. It's because it was like the first good first-person shooter on console and like
Playable first-person
right,
shooter on console, yeah.
that just really unlocked that genre for a whole group of gamers that have always been a larger group of gamers than PC, at least in North America. So like that just unlocked an entire genre for people. So it's a lot of people's first FPS. Honestly, if you go back and play James Bond, if you play GoldenEye now, game's not good.
Let's put it in the C tier. I'm gonna do it. What do you think?
Sheesh. Yeah.
Is that low? I mean, that's kind of low, but I'm looking at the rest of this list, and I would rather play Borderlands than 007 Nightfire. Is that rude to say?
Yeah. Unless you're talking about console version or the PC version, because those were different games for Nightfire.
I played the console version. I played the
console
PlayStation
version. Was the better. Console version's the better version.
What do we think? James Bond, C tier? Is that
Yeah,
too low or B
I think
tier?
so. GoldenEye gives it a huge boost, but you have to take points away because GoldenEye is not good today. And the rest of the games that came after, while there's some good bright spots like Nightfire, they've been more or less mediocre most of the time.
Agreed. James Bond, you're getting shaken, not stirred, right into the C tier. Boom roasted. Okay,
Got
next one. I kind of want to go in. It's my pick, correct?
Yes.
This is my pick now? Okay. Because we just did James Bond, I'm just going to say, hey, you know what? Let's do it. Perfect Dark. Let's go right into Perfect Dark.
Perfect Dark is where the James Bond series should have gone after GoldenEye. The first Perfect Dark game is just
Very
better.
good.
It's better than GoldenEye in every way. It doesn't have the James Bond license, and I think by 2000, people had kind of moved on from GoldenEye. And Perfect Dark was good, but is it 2000? It might have come out in 2001. That would have been at the tail end of the N64's lifespan. Not a whole lot of people
that's when I was
picking that game
playing
up.
it for sure.
Yeah. It required an expansion pack. No, it didn't require it, but you got a boost if you had an expansion pack.
Excellent multiplayer. You could like play
With
multiplayer
bots.
with your friends and bots. So my friends and I would just play all together, and we just have bots, and the competition came from who could kill the most bots on the hardest difficulty settings.
Yeah. Yeah, that game's good.
But then that 360 game was kind of meh.
Perfect
will.
Dark Zero. Yeah. Meh at best, to be honest. And I played through the whole thing. Like that was one of those games that I heard was bad and I wanted to like it. I was like, I'm going back to this game. I want to like it. And it was meh at best. And that's kind of it. There was a Game Boy game. I think that's it though. As far as Perfect Dark goes, there are only the two games. So
I kind of want to put this in the C tier with James Bond in the hopes that it becomes better.
yeah.
I don't think it's D tier. I think
No.
it's C tier.
Yes. I agree with you. I would love to see a reboot of Perfect Dark.
Well, they're doing it, right? That's the thing. That's
Oh,
going
that's
on.
right. They are.
That's going on right now. They are. It's the really weird like quadruple A studio that Microsoft's
Oh,
doing.
yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah. There's
It's Perfect
there's-
Dark.
If there's any series on the list of series that we want to have a good comeback, I think Perfect Dark is like probably one of the best candidates.
Yeah, that first game was just so nutty in how the story went. Like Joanna Dark, great protagonist, first of all. But on
Mhm.
top of that, you got the alien thing in the mix up with the alien weapons. It gets weird. It's the perfect level of video game weirdness in a story that I loved.
Yeah.
And as a kid, I was so into it. And I was like, oh, I hope they do more games. And they did one, and I never played it. I should play it just to see how it connects with the first game.
Perfect Dark Zero. I think it's a prequel.
I also should play the first game again.
It's
for
on
the
Xbox
storyline.
360. Gave it like a remaster where it looks.
I got that cartridge right now, man. I got it. The N64 cartridge for it. I could play
all
it
20 frames per second.
old school. I love me 20 frames per second. You know, I've always say less frames is
Cinematic.
better. I'm Mike. Less frames is better, Coletta. That's what everyone calls me.
That's true. That's what.
Why are we trying to
call
have so many frames when you only need 20? You know what I mean?
Mike, less frames is better, Coletta.
That's perfect. I'm going to get a t-shirt made. Okay. What do you want to pick for the next one?
For the next one, let's go with classic Quake, the series. Whole series. First of all, first game, groundbreaking. Ground-quaking, you might say.
Ooh, nicely done. Those are the kind of jokes that people get mad about us for, but I like it. I like it.
We played through it recently. What did you think?
We did together. I Had a great time with you. Definitely got that weirdness. Like, you have that one gun that shoots electricity, and if you're just anywhere near water, you're dead, which I think is funny.
Yeah.
But I love the pacing because it feels very Doomy to me. It feels like Doom, whereas Doom didn't really need a story. We had the basic gist of it. You are a space marine, demon aliens are invading, boom, there's your story, right?
Yeah.
And you could even say just demons are invading. It's not even demon aliens. It kind of tried to do that a couple times, but it's demons, right?
Yeah.
Quake is all over the place, which kind of gives it a knockdown for me because there's nothing really for me to grasp onto. I have no idea what's going on, but it's very fun. Very fun.
Yeah. There's like nothing going on with the story in that first game beyond like it's just some brief setup and some like eldritch horror stuff. Like it's very, very, very Lovecraftian in its
There's a couple named enemies that just sound extremely inappropriate to say out loud.
True. It does. Yeah, that's great. But that's the first Quake. The second Quake does have like a legitimate story to it. And it expands. Well, it doesn't expand. Like it's not related to the first one in terms of story. Like the second one is much more Space Marine-y. And that's where the fourth one picks up the storyline as well, is from Quake 2. Quake 3 doesn't really have a story. It's just Unreal Tournament, but Quake. But yeah, they don't really connect. I'm sure in some deep in the lore somewhere, there's like a Quake 3. There's a way Quake 3 connects to the rest of the games, but it's not immediately apparent. So it's hard to tell. But it is a very good game, and it was the benchmark for a long time for online shooters for PC, like both in terms of like gameplay because it was so fun, and also because the graphics were so good at the time that it was a really good benchmarking game. And it was because of just the way the game is set up. There's easy ways to run benchmarks with it, which was pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm leaning towards putting this guy in the B tier. I don't know if it's A. Do you think it's A?
I might lean more towards A because of how groundbreaking the first one was. Fully 3D first-person shooter, like really is probably
that is true. It's the first 3D first-person shooter. That it has to go A.
Yeah,
it has to go A.
It's what Doom wanted to be if the technology existed when Doom came out. And this is like a game that, because before Quake, 3D accelerators were like not really a thing on PC. And because like there were some 3D games that could use like a 3D graphics card, but it wasn't like nowadays. Obviously, you buy a PC, you have to get a graphics card. But back in those days, you didn't have to, but you did if you wanted to play games like Quake. And because you could play Quake without a graphics card, but it was not as good of an experience. It was like drop in the graphics card, and immediately you can tell this is the future. And so it like created basically a whole category of computer hardware, or not. It didn't create it, but you know what I mean. Like popularized a whole category.
Yeah. Dude, if there was ever a game that my next pick, I'm moving on to my next pick. I feel like we're good with Quake, right? We got it in A tier. It's good. Okay. This game might just be instant S tier the minute I say it, and that is Half-Life.
Yep.
But I think I'm just going to drag it into the S tier. But more importantly, we have to say why. We can't just leave that on the floor there. I think to a lot of our listeners, they'd agree with us. But I want to say why Half-Life as a series is S tier. And to me, it did that whole storytelling without cinematics. Like everything feels like it's going in real time. You are never taken out of it. It is telling you the story as you go along of this installation. The first Half-Life I'm talking about. Then, on top of that, you got amazing physics stuff going on. You have some puzzles that go on in it. You have the dialogue from the scientists. Just everything about it immerses you in so well that it just it's what spawned so many of these games. Like there wouldn't be a Half-Life. I mean, there wouldn't be a BioShock, I think, without Half-Life.
Nope. There wouldn't be Counter-Strike, literally, because Counter-Strike is just a Half-Life mod.
Which is funny because I'm sure I'm looking it up right now. But I'm sure someone will be like, well, there wouldn't be a Half-Life without System Shock, you know?
Oh, sure.
But which was the precursor to BioShock, but which is true. But I think Half-Life just does it so well. And then Half-Life 2 takes it, just as we said before during this whole episode, and twists it and makes it even better. Just improvement on improvement. The gravity gun, Ravenholm, all this stuff that just is so good. Like I was legitimately like scared the first time I played through Ravenholm. It was scary.
Yeah,
it was creepy.
That level is scary. Yeah, I think so. The first Half-Life took a lot of things like first-person shooters obviously already existed, 3D ones that you had your Quakes and those kinds of things. Story-driven first-person narrative games kind of existed. You already mentioned System Shock, so like that kind of already existed. But there hadn't been a game really that had brought all of those things together and then like also was the best at those things while bringing them all together. It was a really, really good game. Just shooter-wise, like just the mechanics, the game of it is fun. The storyline is fantastic. And like you said, like it's all real time. It really feels like extremely immersive. So Half-Life definitely makes S tier. And then when you talk about Half-Life 2, you also got to talk about Episode 1 and Episode 2, which while they didn't quite deliver on their promise of, like a new Half-Life every 6 months, which was kind of the sort of promise of like, well, we're just going to do these smaller episodes and then we'll be able to keep putting out Half-Life games quicker. They'll just be shorter. And everybody was like, oh, that's interesting. But then they only did 2 episodes and they took like 2 years each. And then that was it. I mean, Half-Life Alyx, which I haven't played yet, which I hear does for VR kind of what Half-Life has done for other things too.
I was actually about to say Half-Life Alyx is also, I feel like, an S tier game because they got first person shooters to work well on a VR thing.
Yeah, I haven't played that, so I can't speak to it. But yeah, Half-Life 2 is a formative game for me. I mean, I loved the first one when it came out, but I didn't realize how good it was because I was a little too young to realize how good it was. Half-Life 2, I was like, dang, this is just S tier all the way. So good.
By the way, Half-Life Opposing Force is also a very good game as sort of as a DLC side story kind of thing.
Yeah, the expansions. Blue Shift also is in there.
Mm-hmm.
And then the co-op one on PS2, which you and I keep talking about playing.
That's right. Decay.
Yeah.
Half-Life Decay. Well, I think that means Half-Life is S tier. We've determined that. If you don't agree with us at this point, we're never going to change your mind.
There are 0 bad games, and all of them are phenomenal. And if you disagree, then you're just wrong.
Well, where do you want to go next, Tyler?
Let's talk about another game in the Source engine that Half-Life 2 runs on. Do you know which one I'm going to say?
Is it going to leave me there?
Nope. Titanfall. Let's talk about Titanfall.
You got me. You got me so good. The first Titanfall's on the Source engine?
They both are, yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. I love Titanfall 1 and 2. These are both 2 banger games for 2 different reasons.
Tell me all about it. I really haven't played them. I wanted to hear you talk about Titanfall.
So Titanfall 1 is great because this whole, like, it really nailed... There's 2 things going on. First, you pilot mechs in first person, which is awesome, and you feel super powerful and strong, and it's really fun. The second thing, though, is it's got these like parkour kind of elements to it in the first game when you're running as a pilot and you're fighting on the ground. That feels really good. Got cool weapons.
For a minute there were like every FPS was trying to add these cool parkour things in. I remember there was a couple of Call of Duties that sort of had them in there.
Advanced Warfare tried to knock off Titanfall. Yeah, it was really weird. But the first Titanfall was cool. It was also $40. It was cheaper because it was multiplayer only, so it was like a little more accessible in that way. I got it for $20 on sale. I think it was super fun. Love the first Titanfall. Titanfall 2 is amazing though because it takes it and it adds a campaign story that I've talked about it at length on this podcast, how much I love the campaign of Titanfall 2, but it is one of the best single-player first-person campaigns I have ever played, and I will stand by it. I will die on that hill. And that alone, like, personally, I want to put it up really high. Like, I think it should be A. I think it should be A at least.
Okay.
But there are some, I'm sure, that would disagree because I never really played Titanfall 2's multiplayer. I really just played the single player, and the problem is it died off really quickly. Like, it couldn't hold people's attention like, say, a Halo does or a Call of Duty does. Then again, the Titanfall 2 release date was in a terrible state. Like, I don't know why they chose to come out like right before Call of Duty and Battlefield came out.
Yeah, that was probably not a great call. And Titanfall was kind of EA's attempt at making a Call of Duty, right? Because it's Respawn Entertainment, who are the guys who ran, or they're the people who were at Infinity Ward and then they left. There was a ton of drama when they left. They made Respawn Entertainment and EA bought them. And it was like Titanfall was going to be EA's Call of Duty because Battlefield had sort of failed to be that and still sort of fails to be that.
Yeah, and then on top of that, like you wouldn't have Apex Legends without Titanfall because it's in the same universe.
That's true. You can't forget that, and it's got a lot of the movement stuff too.
It does.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put Titanfall up at A tier. This might be too high for some people. I don't think it's S. I think that's really stretching it for S tier. I'm gonna put it at A tier though. That's how I feel about Titanfall 1 and 2. Tyler, for my pick, I'm going to go with the other game on the Source engine that you fooled me with, and that is Left 4 Dead.
Left 4 Dead. So I'm going to tell you that personally for me, and this isn't where we have to put it right now, but personally for me, Left 4 Dead is an S tier game, and it's because of all of the fun I had in college playing this game with friends in couch co-op on the Xbox 360. So, like I played it with my roommates. I played it with my current partner. Like we just had so much fun playing Left 4 Dead. I played it with you probably. I played it with other friends that we had there. We played so much Left 4 Dead. And this is Left 4 Dead and Left 4 Dead 2, which Left 4 Dead 2 is basically, it has all the levels from Left 4 Dead 1. So it's basically just Left 4 Dead 1 with new levels. And then it has melee weapons, I think, too. I remember everybody was so mad when Left 4 Dead 2 came out because it came out a year later and people didn't feel like it made that many changes to the game. They were like, it's just some new levels and it's just melee weapons. It's just an expansion pack, but they're trying to sell it for the price of a full game. I remember people being really upset about that. But the game's good, man. It's so good.
Well, didn't they just have that new update stuff? They're actively still updating Left 4 Dead 2. This patches.
That's true. This game still gets new updates. It had a community map that came out a couple years ago, which, I mean, the game's over 10 years old now, so for it to be receiving DLC even as recently as 2 years ago is insane. It had just lots of longevity, a lot of different game modes. Even the storyline is kind of fun, right? With the survivors from the first game and then different survivors in the second game, and there's a couple of campaigns where they sort of cross over, which I think is really fun. And I think it sort of pioneered a genre too. This is one of those games that was not the first game to ever be a co-op first-person shooter, but it really pioneered this co-op thing with what they called the director AI, which made every time you played through the game, like the spawns where the zombies came from, all of that stuff, it was different every single time, and it sort of tried to react to kind of how you were playing, and the music cues were so good, and like it really just took a lot of things and perfected them and just made it so fun. And we weren't tired of zombies yet because this was 2008, 2009.
And you still see that kind of stuff now with the Warhammer 40k Darktide coming out. Yep. Like there's still this formula that Left 4 Dead created of 4-person co-op going through a level that's relatively short. Like I think the missions in Darktide are like 20 minutes long, whereas this is like an hour long.
Yeah. The idea is that you can complete like a whole storyline in one sitting, right? And
exactly.
You're meant to play it more than once, too.
I'm going to be honest with you, Tyler. I'm not going to fight you. I want to put this in S tier. I also have those same memories as you do. This is our list.
That's
People
true.
may disagree, but I don't care.
I will accept disagreements on Left 4 Dead. If you don't think it's S tier, that's fine. You can have that opinion. But it's our list, so we're putting it in the S tier.
I love Left 4 Dead. I love it so much. It's one of those games where I come back to, even though it's been like you'll be like, hey, we're playing Left 4 Dead now. You want to play? I'm like, yeah. And it's so small, you can download it really quick. It's great.
Yeah, and it goes on sale all the time. It's basically free, like most of the time, or if not $1 or $2. So you can always pick it up for super cheap. And
just buy 2, by the way. Don't buy 1. It doesn't need to buy 1. 2 is all.
No reason to buy Left 4 Dead 1. 2 has all the levels from Left 4 Dead 1. Yeah, and it's one of those games that, like, to this day, a new game will come out, and if it shares elements of, like, if it's Vermintide or Darktides, like you were talking about, all you have to say is, oh, it's kind of a Left 4 Dead thing, and immediately I know, I see what we're doing here. Obviously, those games are very different. They do a lot of different things. They add on. They make the genre better or worse or whatever. But when you say, oh, it's kind of a Left 4 Dead thing, I'm like, yep, I know what that means.
I just said that last night, explaining Darktide to someone. I was like, yeah, it's like Left 4 Dead. And they're like, oh, okay. I'm like, yeah, that's all you need to say.
Did you play Back 4 Blood? We never played that. We planned.
I did. I played quite a bit of Back 4 Blood. It's fun. I would play it some more though. I never beat it. It's a very good game. The cards thing is kind of interesting because people shy away from cards like this. This is like a new thing that's happening in a lot of games recently.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's like, didn't Star Wars Battlefront 2 have cards and it made people mad? I think it did. That's what happened.
Yeah,
so,
I think so.
Excuse me. Back for Blood does a really good job with the cards in how you get them and like how you organize them and what you pick to like everyone can have kind of like a role, which I think is pretty cool.
That's cool.
And yeah, we should play it. It's super fun. I don't know why we didn't play it actually. It's kind of like our jam. That's 100% our jam, Tyler, is a game like that.
Yeah, we should be playing some Back for Blood. Is it still on Game Pass?
Yep. Pretty sure it will be for a while too.
Okay.
I have it installed still on Game Pass, so I would love to play it.
Okay.
Actually. All right. We got
Next
2 games
one.
left. It's down to you, Tyler.
We're doing Wolfenstein.
Ooh-wee.
And I've only played the first Wolfenstein 3D. That's it. That's all I've played of Wolfenstein.
I've played quite a few of these.
Okay. First Wolfenstein invented a genre. Like first-person shooter really wasn't a thing before Wolfenstein, right? I think it's pretty safe to say that. There were some first-person, like kind of adventure games. They were like, I'm not saying it's the very first-person game, but what we know of as the first-person shooter today was invented by Wolfenstein. So that's got to count for something, right?
I think it does. And I also am like looking at the arc of this game and how it works, where you have Wolfenstein 3D is really good, and then it kind of dips, but then I really think it comes back up again with the New Order and the Old Blood and the New Colossus and all that stuff. I think it really makes a comeback. The Machine Games version, I should say.
Yeah.
Because all their games are good.
So there's Wolfenstein 3D, then there was like a expansion like Spear of Destiny, right?
Yeah.
Is that it until 2001 with Return to Castle
Wolfenstein, pretty much. And then on top of that, and I never played Return to Castle Wolfenstein. I never played Wolfenstein 2009, which was like a remake.
Yeah.
I just know they weren't well received. That's kind of the dip, is what I'm thinking. So, this game is made up quite a comeback, is how I would describe it with the Machine Head titles.
Yeah, I agree. I was going to say I've played a bit of Wolfenstein Enemy Territory, which was a multiplayer only sort of expansion for Return to Castle Wolfenstein. And I think they made it free not that long after it came out. And so that was a staple of high school LAN parties because any game that was free was... everything is free nowadays. It's not that hard. But back in those days, if there was a game that was free, we were playing it at the LAN party.
That's the way to go. It's accessible, baby. Everyone can get in there. I want to put Wolfenstein up in the A tier, but that might be a little high. How about B tier? I don't think it's C. I think it's more than C.
It can't be below B tier because of inventing the genre. I think that just carries too much weight.
Wolfenstein, we're throwing you in the B tier.
Okay. Yeah, B tier, because that counts for a lot. The more recent games, pretty good. But I don't know if we'd call them A tier games, would you?
The last game on our list of franchises to talk about is a game that we've talked about more on this podcast than any other game, and that is Destiny.
That's right. I've spent more time playing this game, this first-person shooter, than I probably spent playing every other first-person shooter I've ever played combined.
Now, Destiny 1 proved that you could play like a kind of a game as a service kind of game, right? Worked with these raids in first person.
Yep. You could describe it as WoW with guns, which is how I sold it to some of my friends when Destiny 2 hit PC. I was like, do you guys want to play WoW with guns? And they were like, yeah, I do.
And then Destiny 2 knocked it out of the park and reiterated it and changed the game and how they do it. But now my critiques of Destiny 2 are that it is so monotonous and grindy now, is how I will put it. As far as the pattern and how they do seasons, it makes it so I don't really want to play the game for like months and months and months at a time.
They have a formula, and once you if the good season starts you off, you forget about the formula and you're not able to see it. Eventually, you can see the formula, and that's when I start to get turned off.
Yeah,
every season or every expansion. usually about this time of year. I usually play the new expansion, and then I play the like first 2 seasons of the game, and by then I'm kind of burnt on it. Which, honestly, that's not that bad.
No, it's not bad. I mean, the new season just dropped this week, and I played the first story beats of it, and I'm like, I think I'm just gonna play the story beats every week until the story ends, and then that's like an hour a week, and then move on with my life. That's kind of how I'm gonna treat it. Just because it's like
do that too.
It's just it is not enough to hold me. And maybe when the new dungeon comes out, we'll play the new dungeon, the Bungo Dungo, if you will.
The Bungo Dungo, gotta love a Bungo Dungo.
But you don't want to. We probably won't do more than that. I want to because but like, it's a blessing is a curse. How you look at games of service at games as a service in 2022. Like, is this a good thing? Is this a bad thing? Destiny was one of the ones that showed it could work, and for that they should get kudos.
It's a game that keeps you coming back even if you stop playing for a while. Like, sometimes I think people sort of knock it as like, oh, I got tired of playing it, therefore it's not good anymore. But that's how every game is. Eventually you get tired of it, and maybe you play it again, like I'll replay a Batman game or something like years later. But Destiny consistently, even if I've gone through a few months where I don't play it, it pretty consistently will pull me back in for a few more months. And I think that is worth something. And just because I stopped playing it doesn't mean it's bad.
Yeah, I want to put this in the A tier.
Okay. Yeah, I'll go with that.
Does that sound good to you? It's
S tier in my heart just for how influential it's been just in my gaming career. Like I said, there's very few games I've played more than Destiny. In terms of just sheer number of hours. It has
flaws, we should say. There are definite flaws. Like, the nature of the game with these guys having supers makes it so PvP never feels balanced. There's this infinite fight to make things feel balanced in the game, and they never will. But that's just kind of the nature of this game type, you know?
Yeah, I also think that the fact that we have enough knowledge of this game to be able to dive deep enough to have critiques like that, of like the season system or how this type of gun is not a good type of gun or whatever, like the fact that we've played enough to know that says something big time. Because most other games, I don't go that deep to find out what's good and what's not, right? I just play it and I move on.
Definitely. So it's going to go A tier, I think. A tier.
Okay.
Also, we didn't even talk about the fact that some of my favorite feelings in my entire life have been beating raids with friends.
Oh, yeah. Can't beat it, man. The first time I took down Callus with my buddies, whew, I still remember the feeling of how good that felt. 'Cause it took us a long time.
It's good stuff. Solid stuff there. Okay, so that's our list. Do we want to go from the bottom to the top?
Yes.
All right. D tier. We have Fear, Red Faction, and Duke Nukem. C tier. We have Call of Duty, Far Cry, James Bond, and Perfect Dark. B tier. We have Unreal Tournament, Battlefield, Borderlands, and Wolfenstein. Then A tier. We have Crysis, Counter-Strike, Halo, Quake, Titanfall, Destiny. Last, in the S tier, we have BioShock, Doom, Half-Life, and Left 4 Dead.
All right.
I feel pretty good about that list. I feel like we have quite a few A tier games, but that's fine. There's some good first person. I mean, if they're first person shooter franchises, they're good, and that's why they're still around. So
yeah, and
that's fine.
we top loaded this with games that we liked. Like, there's a whole bunch of FPS games we just don't like that we don't have on the list because we don't need to talk about games that we don't like, you know?
I'm sure there's also a lot of diehard Call of Duty fans who would just instantly look at the financial success of Call of Duty and put it in S tier. But I think for the sake of this, we're looking at how strong the titles are.
Yep.
And for that, I want to put Call of Duty at C tier.
I think that's fine. Yeah, that's, there's something to be said for a game that keeps you coming back almost every year, which I guess I wouldn't say I come back every year for Call of Duty, but I try to play campaigns, at least of the more recent ones. So
yeah, me too. I like the campaign. I want to play the new Modern Warfare campaign. I just don't want to pay a lot of money for it. You know what I mean?
$70, even on PC.
It's a lot. Man. It's a lot of money. Yeah, and PC games, we're kind of spoiled. We want to get those deals on PC.
That's right.
Well, Tyler, what you been playing?
Well, this week has been a really heavy work week, so I haven't had as much time to play video games. But today I spent a lot of time playing Gotham Knights, and I am still really enjoying it. I totally forgot that you can actually switch characters in this game, and because there's Batgirl, Robin, Nightwing, and Red Hood, and they all have different playstyles and stuff. I haven't played anybody except Batgirl, And at this point, I'm just committed. I'm like, this is Batgirl the game. And then after I beat the story with her, I'll probably go and play some of the other things because they all have their own kind of side story too, I think. I'm assuming that like goes into their backstory. So I'll play everybody else's side story probably. But I'm having a lot of fun with it, man. It's it feels like it's got a pretty deep and engaging like sort of leveling up system. I don't know if I agree with this like level up with experience points and like that whole thing. Like I don't know if I would go so far as to do that, but I do think the progression system is fun in that like I'm unlocking abilities and things like that. I think that's really cool. I do agree with people online when they say the gear system is not good. I would like, honestly, it's one of those things like if you take a look at an entire system and you can just pull the whole thing out and the game's not worse because you pulled that system out and the game still works, you don't need that system. And it's not needed. The crafting system, the stats on the gear, it's like kind of an MMO in that sense, but I haven't felt the need to like min-max any of that stuff. And because of that, it's just like, it feels like, why don't you just rip it out? I every now and then I check and see if I've got something with bigger numbers on it. If I do, I put it on. That's kind of it. That's the extent of my interaction with that system, which I think is kind of a bummer.
Yeah, it's weird to me they would even have like a crafting system in the game like that because everyone wanted it just to be more Batman Arkham game style.
Yeah.
With just a skill tree that you unlock, some gadgets. You don't got to make an MMO. Why you got to do that?
It does feel like it was a game that they wanted to make a live service game, and then I think we talked about this last week too, but then after the failure of the Avengers game, they were like, let's not do that.
Yeah.
And so this is kind of a remnant of those days when it was going to be made that. I am very excited for Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. That's shaping up to be like the real successor to the Arkham franchise, which is made by Rocksteady and has Kevin Conroy's last performance as Batman.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. This game doesn't have Kevin Conroy in it.
Yeah. Well, Batman's dead in the game Gotham Knights, correct? It's like
That's
it's
true.
like a battle for the cowl time. So he's probably not really dead. He's Batman, but still.
Yeah. He's dead, at least from this. This is not really a spoiler. It happens in like the first 5 minutes of the game. But it's not, he shows up a lot in cutscenes and stuff or like flashbacks or whatever. So
okay.
There is a voice actor for him.
Got it. Well, that's good that you've been playing some Gotham Knights. I've been playing a little bit more Warhammer 40k Darktide. Loving that. Played some Destiny, as I said, with the new season. Not really hooked into the whole grind again, just kind of playing the story mode. Then on top of that, there was a new expansion for Jurassic World Evolution 2, baby. I'm back in the saddle again. Me and my Dino Park. It's for the Malta expansion is what it's called. And it's like the new movie, regardless of what you think about it, has the illegal dinosaur trade shown in it. So they add that to the game in a fun way, which is kind of cool. And I've just been enjoying that. It's a very chill week for games for me. You know, I'm not trying to like get sweaty in any multiplayer game. I did play more Insurgency last night, but we play Insurgency against bots, and that's the way to go, I think. Just to kind of like get good as a team, it feels good.
Yeah,
so
good.
It's fun. But yeah, that was good stuff. Anyway, we got a couple emails to read. You want to read some emails with me?
Sure.
I'm going to read Sean's email.
Okay.
First. Sean, the subject line says Kokomo ? Indiana. Hi guys, I've started listening to your podcast from episode 1. Did anyone from Kokomo, Indiana get in touch about the ban on pinball machines being lifted in 2016? Such a wild fact. I was moved to email straight away. Spider Butts, Sean. Honestly,
no.
I kind of want to like reach out. No one did, but I want to reach out. I love this thing. But what would they say? Like, were people in Kokomo, Indiana, like begging for pinball? There's so many questions I have.
I know. I wonder if that's the kind of thing that somebody was going through the laws and they were like, why is this a thing? And they like went around and asked people and they're like, do you know why this exists? And everybody was like, no, I don't. That doesn't make any sense. And they're like, what if we just repealed it? And everybody kind of looked at each other and they all go, yeah, okay.
I just want to call someone from Kokomo.
Yeah.
I want to know how big Kokomo, Indiana is, though. Hold on, everybody. This is...
Is this what they're known for? Is just the fact that they had banned pinball machines until 2016?
I think so. Kokomo, Indiana has, population of 59,604 people.
That's not like big city, but it is also not like rural town, you know?
Yeah, that's not too crazy. I mean, I'm looking on just the Wikipedia page for the town to see if anything mentions pinball, and I'm not really seeing it. Yeah, there's nothing on the Wikipedia page about pinball, but I want to find somebody. I want to find a map of the town and see if there's any pinball places that opened after 2016, like an arcade or something. Does that mean your arcade would just not have pinball in it? Your neighborhood pizza place?
I wonder if it was enforced. If there's a pinball machine, does somebody coming around checking to see if you got a pinball machine? I think they must not. They can't, because I gotta assume that person's job, like, because otherwise it would have been repealed way sooner. I think as soon as in the 80s somebody goes, why do we have this stupid law against pinball machines? I gotta check out pinball machines. No, we're not doing that. You know what I mean? Like, they must not have been enforced.
It couldn't have been. All the more reason I gotta find someone from Kokomo, Indiana.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you want to read Ben's email?
I will read Ben's email. Subject: love the podcast. Thanks, Ben. Hi, Mike and Tyler. I discovered your podcast earlier this year and have been grinding out episodes while I train for a 50-mile ultra marathon next year. Wow.
What? That's too much. That's too many miles.
Too many miles.
It's too many miles.
Yeah. I'm only up to about episode 85, but I've been enjoying it thoroughly. Well, when you reach this episode in 6 months to a year, hi. He says, I'm a fellow Coug and was over at WSU for my PhD in 2012, right after you guys. I think it's awesome that you both have been able to keep the passion to do this each week. I know how tough it can be to do all that research and keep the pod coming each week. I've been into games since I was young and have many of the same memories as you both, but I have also had large breaks in my gaming life. Podcasts like this have helped keep me engaged. Recently, I purchased a Steam Deck and it has changed my gaming life. If you haven't gotten one, it's certainly a must. I do have a Steam game. I have several Steam games. I have a Steam Deck, and it is pretty great. Big fan of it. I got to install Gotham Knights on it, actually. Do some couch.
Oh, yeah. I'm really curious if, like, MMOs play on Steam Decks okay. Does it have a touchscreen? Is it a touchscreen?
It does. It has a touchscreen. There are ways to get, like, World of Warcraft to work on it. You got to install some mods to make it, like, work with a controller. Final Fantasy XIV plays really well on it. That's a good game to play on a Steam Deck.
That's cool.
So, yeah. Ben goes on to say, since I am still behind, I don't know what you have covered, but as an academic, I think it would be cool if you talked about the history of video game schools like DigiPen, etc. That's a great idea.
It is a really good idea. I love that, actually.
Yeah. I hope you are still on the Jaybird train and that John Glames is still near and dear to your hearts. We just said John Glames earlier today, so we talked about
He is near and dear to our hearts. I think about John Glames a lot more than I should. Say that much.
Me too. Also, Mike said he loved Wampus in the Star Wars games episode. I just wanted to mention...
Still stand by it.
There's a code called Wampa Stampa where you could turn into one in Shadows of the Empire. Keep up the good work, Ben.
Oh, Ben, you don't think I'm out there Wampa stomping as a kid when I played that game? 100% I Wampa stomping. It's such a fun cheat code. It's fantastic. It's ridiculous. Yeah. Oh, the Wampa Stampa code is wonderful. Thank you for bringing that up on the podcast, Ben. And that's a great idea for video game schools as an episode idea.
Yeah, that was a really good idea.
All right. Well, with that, I think we're done for the day. I don't know what we're doing next week. It's kind of an exciting time. We're kind of in between books right now, so we'll figure it out from there. But if you want to send us an email, you can do this at codexhistorypodcast@gmail.com. You can join our Discord either through email or on my Twitter account at Mecoletta, MECOLETTA. Look at the pinned tweet at the top of my profile. That is a link that never expires. Tyler's on Twitter at SneakerElf, ELPH. You're there lurking still, right, Tyler?
That's true. I still check it. If you tweet me, I will see it.
And with that, I think that's it for the day. Tyler, do you want to say bye to everybody?
Goodbye, everybody.